Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Chris Anderson, founder and CEO of Elevate Media Group, a digital growth agency helping small businesses grow their visibility, leads, and revenue through strategic video content and podcasts. I'm super excited because every entrepreneur wants to be able to grow their business. They want to get more traffic, leads, and sales, and he knows how to do that. So, with that, welcome, Chris, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, hey Brett, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I love what you do. Just discovered this myself a couple of years ago, and I'm hooked on it.
Yeah,
I have a blast, creating episodes, doing the video podcast, and all that kind of stuff too. So, I have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about and ask you. But can we start off with your personal story? Can you share your background, how you started your career?
yeah. I'll try to keep it brief too.
No
So
worries.
I went to college for athletic training, so nothing of what I do now. I just along that journey, we had a lot of, we in a short amount of time after I got married in 2017, we lost a lot of people in our family, grandparents, unexpectedly. We lost four grandparents in the span of like 2 years.
Wow.
Um, Three of them in a span of 2 months, and it got to the point where it was in the same year. I'd already taken bereavement at the beginning of the year for my grandmother, and then my wife's last three grandparents all passed away at the end of the year. And they're like, "Hey, you've already used all your bereavement, your holiday stuff. Like you can't go." And I was like, "Cause she's down." So we live in Indiana. They were down in Texas, and they're like, "You can't go." And I was like, I'm going. Like that's not a question. Um, like I'm gonna be there for family and support her and her family and stuff. And they're like, well, you've done all this, so um, it'll just have to be unpaid. I was like, it's fine. I don't care. Like I'm going. You're not. That's just. And it just for me that was kind of the last straw that I was like, there's something better out there for me. I don't want to be doing this 30, 40 years down the road because with athletic training, in my opinion, from my goals, I want to have a family and things of that nature. There was a ceiling and there's a limit to what I could make
Yeah.
financially and what I could do. And so I just really, faith is a big part of my journey. Just really started praying about it, having those moments alone and like what is out there. And so I had started listening to podcasts and, Lewis House School of Greatness, shout out to Lewis, was a big influence on me and just learning like, wow, there's more out there than just a 9 to 5. And man, Lewis is crushing it with what he's doing with the School of Greatness and, just building something online. I was like, I could do something like that. I could do something similar. I'm not going to be Lewis, obviously, but there's so much potential out there in the world now with the digital, spectrum we have. So I really started thinking about it, and we went to a conference in 2019. The end of 2019. I was coming home from that. It was Bob Proctor, late Bob Proctor. He's talking about just like paradigm shifts and energy and vibration. And I was driving home. It was in Toronto. I was driving home from there to Indiana. I just saw God be like, "Hey, I want you to quit your job. I want you to quit your job. I got something for you." And I was like, "Okay." So I called my wife. I was like, "Hey, I've got this feeling like God's telling me to quit my job." And so she's a math teacher. She's like, A plus B doesn't equal C. Like, quit your job, like the income, like you saw the student loan stuff. And I was like, I get it. I said, you're not on board. Like, let's just keep praying about it. If it's actually from God and not just like an idea in my head, like we'll come together. We'll be on the same page. Um, and so a handful of months later in February or March, she was like, "Hey, I think you are supposed to quit your job." And I was like, "Okay." So I gave my the work I was at 2 week notice. They asked for four, so I gave them four. So April would start my last 4 weeks. That's when COVID was ramping up in 2020 and really hit hard in Indiana. And so we worked from home my first two of the last 4 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, they furloughed me for the last two. So I was done anyways. And so it was at that moment like, oh crap, okay, I'm not gonna have income coming in. We have some savings. Like, I got to figure this out. And it took a year of me kind of fighting, kind of having that ego, that pride of what I wanted to do in business, what I was thinking to do in business, to seeing like what God was actually providing. And it was people coming, "Hey, how'd you start your podcast?" Because I don't know if I mentioned that in 2019, I started my own podcast, and so it had been
Hmm.
doing well. So people were like, "Hey, how'd you start your podcast? How'd you grow it? How is it you getting all these guests? How do you edit all this stuff?" And I was like, I need money. I can do this. I see the problem. I see this thing I can fulfill, and so started doing that. But I didn't want to do that uh, as a business until the end of 2021, where again, God was like, "Dude, hey, wake up! Like, look what I'm presenting this to you. Like, this is what here it is." And I was like, "Okay, I'll get myself out of the way." Started Elevate. Got our first monthly recurring podcast client that's turned into, a continued client partner, and it's just brought us, all the other business we've had, plus the experiences and the people I've been able to talk to. I mean, I just had the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana here at our studio yesterday to record an episode for the podcast in person, and
Nice.
yeah, that's kind of, and now we do video podcasts, digital, growth productions for businesses and brands online.
So that's interesting. A couple things there. First off, it's funny how, and I've actually seen this play out a number of times. It's funny how, you had the instinct or the idea or the inspiration to, geez, quit my job, whatever. And then COVID hits. It's sort of like, all right, there's no choice now anyway.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but the fascinating thing about that too, I find, is that, and I this always reminds me of a speech I heard The Rock, Dwayne Johnson give to the Lakers before they were going to play an NBA Finals game. I don't know if you've seen it, but he was talking to them about winning and losing and stuff like that. He's trying to motivate them, and he's thinking, what could I talk to them about? And he's already super successful at the time. And he said, what I do is every single day, and he slams his hand against the wall. He goes, I pretend my back's right there. He
Yeah.
goes, because the minute that you start getting complacent, the minute that you start feeling like, okay, I'll just put on the brakes and coast here a while, you never know what's around the corner, right? And so sometimes when in your particular case, because you sort of literally had to figure something out, sometimes we do our best work in those situations because there's no time. You have to get the clarity, you have to get the focus, you're forced to do that. And so it's sort of this strange paradox where in business and in life, we always want a surplus and we want to be in a position of comfort where we have the ability to make decisions and choices. Yet oftentimes that leads to complacency and lack of making those choices and decisiveness. And then suddenly you get pushed to make a decision and you're like, okay, it's go time. So,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, that's something you really have to. It's almost like a line you have to continue to walk. Of like I always see it as, I tell people, you have to have patience, but quickly, kind of thing. Like, you have to be like, yeah, I'm super grateful for where we're at, but there's more coming. And if we don't keep pressing on, the same with, as an athletic trainer background, if you're not continuing to lift weights, if you're not continuing to exercise, like, your muscles are going to dwindle. They're going to deteriorate. So if we're not growing in business, if we're not growing our mindset, our knowledge base, it's dwindling, it's going away. Um, and yeah, you just have to keep pushing, and whatever that looks like for you. Otherwise, yeah, you can have backslides for sure.
yeah. And I think, to your other point that's really important is, yeah, it's sort of the balance between sort of slowly going fast because you want to adapt quickly.
Yeah,
If you see changes, if you see opportunities, you want to be nimble and you want to be able to jump on that and capitalize on it. At the same time, people that continue to jump from one whole idea to another
yes,
always struggle because they think the idea is where the success is, and it's not. The idea is here, and you have to create that through the work that you put into the vehicle you're using. And I think the question, the thing that I'm curious about is for you, what was it that made you think, geez, digital marketing, podcasts, like, was there something that gave you that particular inspiration?
um, I just saw like where things were going, and when I started my podcast, back in 2019, like I was doing video from the start because I kind of saw at least a little bit of like, hey, this is going to be important. This is going to be big. So that was kind of the inspiration. And then just seeing how, there's so much online nowadays and even still, so that's a great point. Like we could jump into the bandwagon of like, we're just going to show you how to do all this AI stuff. Cause I've seen a lot of people jumping into, hey, here's AI tools, here's AI, this, that. And I'm like, hey, we could still give, value on how to use AI, implement it with what we do, but we've got to stay the course. We got to stay with what we're doing because eventually, like I see people getting burnt out from AI or people getting like so used to AI that videos of actual people, live streams of actual people, interactions online with an actual person is going to be almost more or less seen. And so it's going to be wanted more because I think we're made for relationships, for community. And we're online so much, we're going to have to get it somehow through and a real person versus an AI person. No matter how good they get, it's going to be different. And we're going to lean more to wanting that human interaction. So that's another thing I see, that if brands can continue to implement, real people on their videos instead of just making the quick AI content, they're going to be better in the long run. But that's some of the stuff I saw, the inspiration for it. Like again, Lewis House, like I was like, man, he's built a community online. Like he gets to talk to all these really cool people and learn from them. Like that was a big inspiration. And then just leaning into what was working, and slowly implementing. Like there was a point where we're just doing video podcasts, launching edits, which we still do. And we added on, video production, so brand stories, social media content, which we still do. But then I was like, oh man, yeah, we're doing really good. Let's do lifestyle stuff for families. Let's do weddings for people. Let's do X, Y, and Z. And I was building it all out, and like you could kind of start to see the team and the momentum kind of shift a little bit and slow down. And I was like, that was wrong. I was like, nix that idea. I got a little bit over myself on that one. Let's go back to what's been working and let's do it really, 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 really good, even better than we are. And keep it simple and just stay kind of in our lane. And so, yeah, we've had to have that inspiration of like, hey, we don't need to do it all. We just need to do what we do really, really well. That's a no-brainer for people to use us.
Yeah, that's really smart. And, it's good that you tried it, right? Because you wouldn't know if you didn't try. But the fact that you looked into these other things and then you're like, wait a minute, we're diluting our focus and what it is that we're really good at. Let's get back to that. That's our core. That's what, where it's really working for us. So I think that's, and to your earlier point, yeah, I've often said, I think we're entering the age of authenticity, right? So social media has gone on this arc. Initially you could post baby videos and funny like animal videos and get millions of views because it was novel. And then we went past that and went to real content and all these other things. Then it got to this sort of age where everybody wanted perfection. It was over curation where every image looks perfect. Every video is crisp and perfectly edited and every single thing about it. And we've gotten to a point now where I think that there's still obviously value in good quality. But I think that now that the bots are sort of taking over, look, AI has tremendous benefits in a lot of ways, and it can really shortcut some of the monotonous parts of what we do. At the same time, it doesn't have experiences. It hasn't lived a life. It can't share with you what, what I mean? It was like when they saw their puppy get hit by a car, or when they got their first bike for Christmas, or whatever it is, right? So only human beings exactly can share that. And I think that that's a really powerful point. And to that end, I see it the same way. I use AI as a tool. I never use it to create my own content because it's about doing something that you're passionate about and having that human connection with people. I think that's super important. So through your journey of this process, what has surprised you the most? Like what has it all been like? What was your biggest challenge, would you say?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, it has surprised me a little bit. That's a good question because looking at like, I'm surprised with the experiences we've been able to have, we're early on still. I mean, we've been almost 4 years, which is still, because I always joke, I'm like, it feels like it's been like 20 years, but it's only been 4, and it's only been 4, and we've done some really cool things, and so it's an interesting perspective on it. But I think what doors it's allowed to be opened for me, for the team, for what we've been able to do has been really exciting and surprising a little bit. Um, I mean, I never thought we'd get hired by Apple to help with NBA All-Star games. I never thought, we would be down in the pits at Indy 500, seeing the Grand Canyon in between production shoots down in, Arizona area there, and on the way to Vegas. So like things like that, just experiences, which I love. Met a lot of really cool people through the work and just through the podcast itself, which has been fantastic. Um, but I guess the surprising, like I knew it was going to be difficult. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I think I've been surprised with how a lot of that is our fault. Because I think business is simple. To create a business and grow a business is simple, but it's not easy. It is hard, but we make it a lot harder by overcomplicating things, by trying to do too much, by like what you mentioned earlier, and, chasing that shiny object and starting all over, and wondering why it's not working. So those are things that have surprised me along the way so far, for sure.
Yeah, look, I can tell you essentially a 20-year entrepreneur myself, it's amazing to me some of the lessons that you learn, and no matter how many times other people might tell you, or how many you just some stuff you just have to go through to understand it. And I always say, one of the reasons that I actually started my podcast was because, having built a digital business and doing all these things for all these years, one of the things that I recognize, especially as technology and the internet speeds and all these other things have gotten better and better, is ironically we're more digitally connected than we've ever been, but we're more physically disconnected than we've ever been.
Yep.
And so, unless you work with a team, unless you have a big staff or a company where you're in the office every day, for a lot of people, entrepreneurship is a lonely enterprise.
Right.
You're in your bedroom, you're in your home office, you're in your basement, whatever, and you're trying to make something go. And there's something beautiful about that, but there's also something very isolating about it. And in those times of struggle, those are the times where you start to question everything and you say, geez, is this going to work? Like, am I doing the right thing? It looks like everyone around me is so successful, but I'm going through these struggles.
Yeah.
Then you start to talk to people and you start to realize, wait a minute, he was struggling, she was struggling, they were struggling. Like, everybody has gone through the peaks and valleys. And I thought it was so important to share that, to let everybody out there know that if you're trying to build a business, if you're trying to do something that's comes from your passion, and it's something that you believe you have something to contribute and to give and a way to help other people or change their lives, stick with it, keep going. You're going to have peaks, you're going to have valleys, but you will find the answers if you just pay attention to the results you're getting and keep adjusting your approach as you need to, and know that you're not alone. Other people have walked those steps before and are doing it every single day, and so it's super important. um, I've talked to people that, on the outside, you would think these people have never struggled, and shocked to find out that 3 weeks ago they had a crisis they didn't know they were going to walk away from. And you're like, what? So it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. This too shall pass, right? Good or bad. That's why I always try to remind myself along the journey. Whatever it is, it'll pass until it's the end. Like it's gonna pass. So, you know, learn from those hard moments, enjoy, the good moments, but keep moving forward, and try not to ride the roller coaster of the emotional um, ride that it can take you on, and just try to stay even keeled. But yeah, I think it definitely is like, and social media makes it hard. I think it makes it hard. It's probably one of the biggest reasons we're seeing so much mental health
Yeah.
issues in younger generations, is because so much online is a comparison game, and so easy for people to put people down behind the screen, the keyboard warriors. And yeah, I think it definitely, I mean, obviously it has the benefits, it has the positives, but there's so many negatives if you're not, aware of it. And comparison in business is the same thing. Comparison is the thief of joy. And so when you're looking at other people in your market, uh, and man, that's so cool, they're doing so great, like it can wear on you. So you got to really protect that and have those boundaries. And that's why I try to tell people, like, it's not easy. Like, we're not perfect. Elevate's not perfect. We're not, some multi-million-dollar company. Like, we still they still have ups and downs.
Yeah.
We still have it, and we just do the best to serve our clients and continue to grow and elevate ourselves, so we can make a bigger impact in the world. And so we're just grateful for where we're at, what we've been able to do, and where we're headed. So
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I love your advice about trying to remove emotion from it, because the same emotion that will make you feel over the moon and like Superman one day
yeah,
is the same one that'll make you feel like terrible the next day, because it is a roller coaster. And the to the degree that you can step back from that, view it from 10,000 feet and see it analytically
right,
and say, look, all this is inputs and outputs. If business is about creating value, it's the exchange of value, right? That's all it is. So instead of getting caught up in tactics and techniques and strategies, just think, what can I do to best serve my audience, best serve my client? If I'm doing that genuinely and I'm doing it in a way where I'm really providing value, that value is going to be for the right people, worth more than the money I'm asking for. Therefore, I can build a successful business, and there will be, things that I do that are missteps along the way. There'll be things I do that'll be perfect because the stars align and the timing was good and I crushed that one. But if you look at it analytically and you focus on the numbers of, okay, we've got the inputs and we've got the outputs, you could just keep making those adjustments. And it's not easy because you're personally invested in your business, as you should be. At the same time, it's a really powerful lesson, because if you're able to do that, you can have a longer term approach, see it from a longer point of view, and not overreact to each and every little thing, because that will drive you crazy, crazy.
absolutely.
So why do you think video podcasting is the best way for for a business to grow and to build their exposure?
Yeah, I think it, because it does so much with the time that you give it. So like this recording can go on YouTube, and YouTube's the biggest search engine outside of Google, right? And especially for video. And now with AI, they're able to pull keywords out of the video itself, and so it just will help in the search there. Plus, you can put it on the podcast platforms as audio, so you're getting extended reach there. And then, of course, you can break this down into the video content for your social media. So again, it's extending its lifespan out there, all that's evergreen that people can keep coming back to. Plus, as a brand and a business, we're going to start seeing more and more, C-suite level individuals, the face of the businesses, coming and doing these things, so they can build that, that know, like, and trust factor with their audience more and more. And so you're learning more about who you're buying from. You're learning more about the people who run the business. Do I agree with, their positions on things? Do I like how they approach life or business or family or whatever it might be? So you're being able to learn and make that decision, because people like to buy from people. And so having that, personal face in these videos, are so important going forward. Except, like we mentioned earlier, because of AI, there's going to be so much, fake created things out there. Plus, on top of that, you can live stream your show, which just builds even more communication with those who tune in, because you can have communications and questions from them as you're recording the episodes, which we've seen do well, and I think will continue to do well going forward. But yeah, it's just a big piece of authority building, trust building, and having that connection with your audience in a different way than we've had before. Because you got to think, if Jeff Bezos, obviously he's not in the position or need to do this because he's big enough. But if he started out and was online, taking questions from his people who liked his business, and taking input and feedback and just connecting, what a great impact that would have had. on people who follow him. If you think of your celebrities who are celebrities now, but if they were as they were growing, they would get online and field questions or just communicate. Like, how cool that would be. Like, how cool is it to talk to them in person whenever you meet someone like that? To be able to do that now, if they were to do it whenever online through live streams or through videos, video podcasts, like it just opens the door to so much more personal brand building and business brand building to grow outside of the companies who aren't trying to make that personal connection. Because one will seem more like a transactional based relationship, and one will actually seem like a um, relationship where people actually care about the people they're selling to instead of just trying to sell for the dollar.
Yeah, which I think is super important because, as you mentioned, right, people now really want to buy from people. It's funny how business has evolved, and it's become. It used to be company driven. They gave you whatever products and services you selected from that, and it was a nameless, faceless place you bought from. Nobody cared. It was about the utility you got from the purchase. Now people want to know what do they stand for? What are their causes? Like, who am I doing business with? So because that's changed and now consumers drive business instead, it's sort of flipped on its head. It's fascinating because the businesses that are willing to engage with their customers and clients have an advantage. And to your other point, speaking of people that built themselves from interaction. I mean, Gary Vee, that's how he built his entire empire. He was doing Wine Library TV in his basement. His parents had a liquor store, so it was a really smart use of the assets he had to him. And he said, I actually had a chance to meet him before. He had already been doing Wine Library TV, but he wasn't the mega, personality he is now. And the fascinating thing about it is what he said at the time was, look, I did Wine Library TV for a couple of years, and nobody listened. He always jokes, right? Nobody ever watched. But one of the things that he did that was really, really smart that separated him, and it's what very few people would have the discipline to do, is he said every email he got, he spent 2 hours a day just responding to emails. Every person that reached out to him, he personally reached back. Oh, you want a wine recommendation for, filet mignon this weekend for your family picnic? Oh, here it is. And he would personally get back and forth, and then he'd reference them in the videos that he would make. So he built this community around it, and he instinctively knew that even before, that became popular or what everybody was doing. And so it explains that, and his tenacity and his like willingness to just keep going. It totally explained how he was able to achieve what he did. I mean, which I think is awesome. So if is there specifics about how you used your podcast to build your business? I mean, we all get sort of the big picture, right? So you get exposure to an audience, and so that allows you to share your message, and like you said, you can bond so they buy into you. But are there particular tactics or strategies that you used as well?
So, so what we did, most, if not all, our business came from guests on the show, actually. So we structured it knowing that businesses were going to need video, and I was going to interview, CEOs, business owners, the decision makers, um, and so, why not utilize that pathway to build those relationships, and then, show them what we could do for them. So that's been our big kind of method. Um, so if you have a business that connects in that way, you could just utilize it through guests, inviting the guests that are also the decision makers who would do business with you. If not, just make sure you have, a consistent, clear call to action for people, for your, the pathway that they will take. So whether that be, for them to go eat your free lead magnet, something else you're just giving for free to add value, or maybe it is scheduling a call, maybe it's joining a free community. Whatever it is, just have a really clear call to action, and consistently, and try it at different places throughout your episodes. Try it at the very beginning, try it in the middle, try it at the end. Pick some of those and just get data to see, maybe you separate it. Maybe the ones at the beginning are a certain call to action, the middle is a certain call to action, and the end's a certain call to action, and see which one gets more traction. And that could be based on the call to action itself or just the placement of it. But having a clear pathway for what people can do next, is really helpful, especially if you're selling something online, like a product or even a service. If you're looking for them to get your help for coaching or for financial guidance or whatever it is, just having that pathway set up is important. And then if you're guesting, if you're having guests, make sure the collaborations are huge as you're posting things. Try to collaborate online with them, have them share it out, um, and then just keep the relationship alive, and try to keep listening to your audience and improve and implement things that they're saying that they want or that they want to hear more of. And um, I think it's just a big top of funnel basically. So what can you do to get them into your kind of warmer lead funnel to trickle them down closer to becoming a client or a raving fan, whichever you want to do.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So for your podcast specifically, you were able to get it into the top 2% globally. Are there strategies, or how did you do that? Were there things that you did deliberately to try to grow it?
So the big thing was, just posting consistently about it, interacting with people, collaborating with the guests is a big one, and just being consistent. I mean, we're coming up on 500 episodes. We've done, every week, and just consistently pushing it out there and connecting. And that was the big stuff, is just being consistent with it, trying to get the best content we can out there. I still have lots of room to grow as a host, and everything. Um, so there's always room for improvement, but doing the best you can and just being consistent with it and just letting people know about it. Um, so sending messages, hey, I was thinking about you. We did this episode. It's talking about X, Y, and Z, which I know we discussed previously, or I know you're in this field and, this could resonate with you. Would love a follow and share if you liked it as well. Just putting it out there. And something we implemented early or not too long ago, when people go to schedule the show, we'll actually have a link of like what, or like a list of what to do. We ask, hey, can you go follow the show? Here's the link on Apple Podcasts to go follow. We'd appreciate that. Here's Chris's, here's my Instagram. Go, follow Chris on Instagram. Or I think that's the only page. We might have Facebook on there, but like having a pathway there for the guests, even as they come on the show, like, please go follow this, so that way you also don't miss your episode. But every time an episode comes out, we'll email the guests and say, hey, your episode's live. Here's the episode link and the content. Feel free to share and collaborate with us, and things like that. So just getting the word out as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's great. So if somebody wants to get started with it, let's say somebody says, okay, I'm sort of bought into this, but I have no idea what I'm doing. How can somebody get started with video podcasting?
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as, using Zoom. I mean, you could start with your phone, and importing that clip, that video to your computer, and cleaning it up some. Um, there people are all like, I'll do it in my car and it'll sound terrible. I'm like, you can. That's super super authentic, but data shows that, like, if your audio is really bad, people aren't going to tune in because they're not going to want to have that noisy background stuff when they're trying to listen. It's too distracting. So try to have audio the best you can. Focus on that first, and then your video. But yeah, just get started. Know who you're talking to, and how you can add value to them, and just keep going. It's just reps. I mean, when I first started the podcast, it was called Pencil Leadership, and I think the videos are still on YouTube if you go back that far, or even even on the podcast platforms, like the first episodes, and they're terrible. It's absolutely awful. The video was awful. The sound was bad. I thought it was good back then, and I was like, when I first started, I was like just reading a list of questions. So I'd be like, question one, they would answer, and I wouldn't even like think or listen, basically. And I'd be like, all right, question two. Like, it was bad. So there is plenty of room for everyone in this space. If I can make it, if I can make it work, you guys can too. But yeah, just get started. You don't have to have all the fancy equipment. You don't have to have all that. Get a low, priced podcast hosting platform, Simplecast, Buzzsprout, and then just focus on your audio, and then put it on YouTube. It's free there to do that, just to build it up and just continue to improve and spread the word. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're not alone with the terrible first episodes. I totally get it. But it is, right? Here's the thing: people want to, and I've talked to a lot of people that either want to start a podcast or have thought about it or whatever, and
Yeah.
the fear is always the same thing. It's like I want to learn everything first,
Right.
become an expert, and then start podcasting. I'm like, no, no, no. You only learn by doing it. Like when you learn to, nobody got on a bike the first time, rode down the street, popping wheelies and doing tricks. Right? You go 2 feet, you fall over, you skin your knee, you get back up, you try it again, and then eventually you get to that point. The only way to do it is to learn by doing,
Yep.
and so fail fast,
Yep.
make changes fast. You know what I mean? And I actually I sort of love that. I look back at that and I say, instead of running from it, I embrace it, because if people can see the before and the after, it's more powerful than if they just see the after. When you see somebody who's in a position where to you it feels unattainable, and that's all you see, it's hard to relate to that or try to aspire to do that. If you see where they started and you see where they, and you say, wow, hey, wait a minute, they were worse than I am.
Right.
I can just pick up here, and if I keep going and do it, maybe I can do it too. Now you've got that internal belief, and that changes the whole game, because once you believe in it and you start doing it. But I'm 100% on board with your advice about that, because you have to just get started. You can't wait until everything's perfect. I've got news. I don't care how good your plan is, you're going to change it once you get going.
Yep.
There are going to be changes. There are going to be things you didn't anticipate. There are going to be tweaks. And
Yep.
so it's dynamic, it's organic, and lean into it. And one of the other things that I meant to comment on this before, you mentioned it a little while back. You were saying something, and you mentioned about the importance of enjoying the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I know personally I've struggled with at times. I'm goal oriented. I'm trying to get to something, and so I'll find myself in this sort of pit of frustration where I'm like, I just want to get, and I just want it to go faster and fast. And I think it's so important to recognize that those frustrating journeys, those obstacles, those challenges that we faced along the way are the very things that give meaning to the thing that we're doing. If what we do is easy right out of the gate the first time, it's much harder to appreciate that. When you fight for something, when you struggle for something, when you work hard for something, it just feels a lot better. You have a lot more pride and appreciation for it. So, there's everybody would love an easy path to get there. At the same time, just embrace the journey, whatever it is, and enjoy it along the way, because that's where the growth comes from.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like you see, you think about it. How many times have you heard stories of gold medalists, national championships, whatever, saying, "Man, you remember that journey to get here? It was so easy. It was so easy." They talk about the challenges. They talk about, yeah, man, I was playing on like one leg. I was had a dislocated. Like they talk about all the struggle. Like,
Yeah.
man, that was something. We were just in the trenches of that challenge, just trying to get through. And I mentioned that to the team now, like in when we're in some valleys or when we're in some fights, it's like, man, we're gonna look back at this, when this is over, when we're past this, and be like, you remember when we had to do that, and how we had to get through that? Like that was something. That was like, oh, that was like thinking of the positivity from it. Like you never hear someone's journey at the end that succeeded in something good and be like, oh yeah, that was such smooth sailing the whole time. Like those memories of us just not having to worry about anything were great. Like that's just not how it works. So, like seeing it that way, like these are going to be the memories of when we get to that success. Like we're gonna go back and like kind of chuckle and be like, oh man, those were, yeah, we were deep in it, but we kept going, kind of thing.
Yeah, the right perspective is so important. So, all right, so I know you've tackled this before, so I got to ask about it.
Yeah.
What about the people that say, okay, I like this idea, but I'm afraid to be on video. Like I'm not going to be good. I don't look good on video. I don't sound good on video. What advice do you have for people in that situation?
Well, if you see me, you know you can do it too. So don't worry about that. But yeah, that's a big thing. Just don't compare yourself. Like, just go at it. You are, created, with a purpose and how you are for a reason, and that's gonna allow you to connect with certain people that I'm not going to be able to connect with. And that's what you got to understand. You're here, and your story matters, and what you're doing matters. And so don't let the fear of what someone online might say, or a lot of times we make molehills out of, or anthills out of molehills, whatever it is. We make a bigger deal about things than it really needs to be. We worry about things that actually don't ever happen. Um, we worry about people are going to say negative things about us, how we look, or how the show is, and we give more energy to that, and it never happens. And so just kind of put that to the side and think more of like the positive impact you can have, and the growth that you're going to have from it, the confidence you can build. But you got to start somewhere to be able to improve and get to that next level. And so, yeah, I mean, we've had people who we still have some clients who are like, I don't want to be on video. Like, I don't want to be in the clips because I'm self-conscious of, certain things. And you understand it, and you take that with grace, and say, okay, that's fine. But try not to let things hold you back from your potential and greatness, just because it's new for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you only grow when you do things that are uncomfortable, right? So,
Right.
all right. So, where can people connect with you, find your products, find your services?
Sure, yeah. You can connect with me directly on Instagram at chris.t.anderson. Love any messages. I love answering them myself, and taking any questions there. Feel free to connect with me. If you're trying to check out what we do, elevate-media-group.com. Or you can, tune into the Elevate Media podcast, give us a follow, shout out. Yeah, we'd appreciate that. So.
Perfect. Thanks for that. All right. I have one last question I got to ask, because I always want to know what everyone's going to say. And that's, what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Oh, number one tip for success. That's a good one. It'd have to be stay the course. Um, when things get rough, when things get good, just remember what you're doing it for, and stay the course, because it's the consistent, never giving up business owner that's going to win, um, along the way. So just stay the course. Know when to shift and pivot a little bit, but don't give up on the main thing, and don't chase the shiny object.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again so much, Chris, for sharing all your tips and insights with us. Visit elevate-media-group.com to see how you can grow your business with video. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, remember, no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.